Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I'd really appreciate your comment. It helps me understand if you enjoyed the story and how I can improve in future ones. I got the line while the cicadas were still loud enough to compete with the kitchen fan. My name is Aaron Madsen, I'm 36, and I run a roofing and exterior contracting outfit in Raleigh. Tuesday night, late summer. The kind of sticky heat that makes you leave the windows cracked even with the AC on. I had a stack of estimates open on my laptop. Insurance claims, 2 apartment complexes that needed new ridge vents before hurricane season, and a simple gutter job I didn't want to pawn off on the crew because the old man who called sounded like he trusted my name more than the company logo. My hands still smelled faintly like asphalt shingles from a site visit. I was tired, but good tired, the kind you feel after the day made sense. She sat across from me at the island, scrolling her phone the way she'd been scrolling life lately. Thumb quick, eyes flat, half smile that belonged more to the screen than to me. The light over the sink buzzed once and settled. Our dog, Moose, thumped his tail against the cabinet, hopeful and ignored. On the counter between us, my measuring tape, a half-finished invoice, and the dinner I'd boxed up because she texted running late, but had still beaten the sunset home. For weeks the air in the house had carried a different weight. Not heavy. Plans slid. Sentences ended in whatever. She started keeping her phone face down and the sound off. A new passcode. New friends with names I didn't recognize. Co-workers who suddenly needed midnight advice. I told myself it was a phase, the way you tell a client their roof might limp through one more season if the weather keeps being kind. But seasons turn and kindness quits. It didn't break with a fight, just a laugh. She lifted her eyes from the blue light, looked straight through me like I was a slow-loading page, and let it out, short, almost kind. "You think I need you?" she said, voice casual, posture relaxed. I'm never short on options. It's funny how a sentence can be both light and heavy at the same time. The words didn't land like a punch, they registered like a weather alert. Something in me went very still. I took a sip of water, and the glass knocked the tape measure with a small metallic clack. Moose's tail went quiet. I swear the fan slowed a beat. People expect scenes. Raising voices, a list of everything you've done and everything you've endured. I didn't feel any of that. What I felt was the same click I get on a roof when a soft shingle tells me the decking is rotten underneath. You don't argue with rot. You mark the square footage and plan the tear off. I set the glass down carefully. "Perfect," I said, and I meant it in the exact way the word sounds when the numbers on an estimate finally balance. Let them pay for your roof. Her eyebrows popped like I'd spoken in a language she didn't know. She smiled again, tighter this time, the kind that works on waiters and girlfriends. "Don't be dramatic." She stood to rinse a cup she hadn't used. "I'm going out." "Sounds good." My voice came out even, like I was signing for a pallet of shingles. I closed a tab on the laptop and opened another, then another. Habit, not message. I'd trained myself to move at the same speed in storms and sunshine. This didn't start tonight. That's the part you only admit to yourself when the house is quiet. The subtle rewrites. Your truck became your money. Our schedule became your work. Our friends split into hers and mine. I offered solutions, date nights, weekends away, even counseling. Each suggestion sat on the table like a brochure she'd skim and forget. Meanwhile, my calendar filled with other people's emergencies. Tarps after hail. Soft spots near chimneys. Insurance adjusters who needed a patient adult in the room. She started calling my dependability boring. It's hard to argue with a person whose decided reliability is a flaw. A month back, I changed my emergency contact at the supply yard to my foreman, Nate. It felt minor at the time, more practical than prophetic. On the same day, I bought a new box of contractor bags because they were on sale, and I told myself that was a business decision. I stopped leaving my wallet and keys in the catch-all bowl by the door. Quiet edits, the kind that don't make a sound until they do. She checked her reflection in the microwave door and smoothed a dress I hadn't seen before. Something black, easy, made for dim places and other people's attention. The perfume she used to save for our dinners showed up like a guest who'd forgotten my name. "Don't wait up," she said, not unkindly, just with the confidence of a person who believes the house keeps spinning because she wills it. "I won't," I said. I had 3 estimates to finish and a supplier dispute to resolve before morning. And if sleep came, I'd take it. She slid her phone into a small bag, the kind with a chain that clinks when it hits a table. Keys, lipstick, an ID she kept separate from the wallet in case she needed to be someone for a night without carrying who she was by day. She paused at the door, like she might toss me a courtesy line, then apparently remembered we were past courtesies. The latch clicked, then the deadbolt. She never locked it from the outside, but she locked it now. Habit or message, I couldn't tell. Either way, I had the other key. The house exhaled. Moose curled back into his spot, relief beating confusion. The street outside hummed with summer, far-off music, tires hissing faint on damp asphalt. A neighbor's laugh traveling too easily. I went back to the invoices. 2 jobs approved, 1 hanging. I typed notes for Nate to pick up flashing from the yard. The rhythm steadied me. Numbers, dates, square footage, labor hours, margins that make sense or don't. There's comfort in proof. Her sentence floated up again, like a caption on a photo I didn't remember posing for. Options. I'm not against options. My whole job is options. 3-tab versus architectural, copper versus aluminum, full replacement or repair and watch. You lay out the choices. You warn about the weather. Then you live with what you choose. That's the part she never liked. Living with it. I closed the laptop when the fan stopped buzzing and the kitchen settled into that late hour where even creaks feel respectful. I stood, stretched, rinsed my glass, and set it down upside down on a towel. On the way to bed, I flipped the porch light to the motion setting. Not a message. A habit. Rain or raccoon, I like to see what approaches. In the bedroom, my side of the closet looked like a store display. Work tees stacked, polos on their hangers, boots lined heel to toe. Her side had grown into a suggestion more than a space lately. Empty hangers, a garment bag she never unpacked, 3 pairs of heels I kept nudging out from under my jeans. I pulled tomorrow's shirt and set it over the chair. The dog hopped onto his bed with a grunt that sounded like a man clocking out. I lay back and stared at the ceiling fan. I've learned roofs talk if you listen. Little clicks when the temperature drops, a soft give where a nail missed a stud, a seam that whispers before it leaks. Houses don't betray you. They warn you. People warn you too, but we call it attitude until it turns into action. A text lit the dark. Not from her. Nate, confirming the 7 a.m. pickup. I typed back a thumbs up and an add 2 rolls of ice and water. Then I set the phone face down on the nightstand, screen off, ringer on. I don't chase clients and I don't chase storms. I go where I've chosen to work. Sleep took its time, but not out of torment, out of inventory. The mind counts what stays and what goes. I let her sentence take its shape and sit where it belonged, on her side of the ledger. Options cost. Choices have invoices. Roofs that look fine at dusk can be ruined by dawn. I own a tarp, and I know how to use it. By the time the hum of the street thinned to nothing, I'd made one decision I didn't speak aloud. The next thing she put on the table would be the last thing I ate without reading the label. Calm, factual, slightly stunned, that's fair. But stunned doesn't mean stuck. I've pulled whole systems off houses by noon because the morning told the truth. If the morning did the same here, I'd be ready. The porch light clicked on once around midnight, motion or wind. You can waste a whole night chasing shadows. Better to sleep, better to wake with clear hands. Somewhere out there, she was collecting proof for herself. I closed my eyes and let the house do what it's always done when I build it right. Hold. Morning didn't confront me, it reported in. Coffee, emails, a voicemail from an adjuster about a hail claim and carry. Moose followed me from room to room like a foreman, checking my pace. The house had that post-storm clarity where everything looks the same, but nothing is. Her chair at the island was crooked, the perfume still hung in the doorway like a guest refusing to leave. I straightened the chair and opened the laptop. Work first. Work always makes sense. By 8, I'd laid out the crew's schedule and texted Nate to pick up 2 extra bundles and a box of ring shank nails. We had a chimney detail that needed more bite. I added ice and water to the list. It felt like superstition and good sense at the same time. The phone buzzed against the counter. Not her. A notification from the bank. A bar tab, then a rideshare, then another bar tab after midnight from a place uptown that sells cocktails with garnish taller than the glass. Data is just weather until you stand under it. At lunch, I checked our calendar, bare reminders of a life we used to run together. Dentist, her cousin's baby shower, a note I'd left weeks ago for a long weekend at the coast I never booked because she called it too couple Y. I deleted the coast note and closed the app like I was tucking in a child that had outgrown the bed. My phone buzzed again, a screen grab from a buddy. Her story, a row of glasses, a caption about choosing yourself and loving your options. The shot was framed carefully, only hands and glasses. Intentional ambiguity. That's a kind of honesty. I finished a proposal, ate leftover chicken standing up, and called my supplier to argue about a backordered vent hood. When you own a trades business long enough, you learn how to keep your tone level while getting exactly what you need. The same skill works at a kitchen island. By mid-afternoon, the pressure found its second wind. A text from her sister. She's saying you're being cold. Are you guys okay? I stared at the words for a beat and felt nothing but a detached gratitude for neutrals like cold. Cold can be control. We're fine, I wrote back. Tell her to be safe. Let her write her own. Around 5, my screen lit up with her name. I let it ring once before I answered. The background noise was a brick wall of laughter and clinking glasses. Hey, she said, bright and distant. You good? I'm good. You seemed weird last night. I let that sit, then offered her the only questions that mattered. What's going on? And is there someone else? The silence on her end was surgical. Wow. Insecure much? No, I said, and even I could hear how calm it was. I'm clarifying the job site. What job site? Our marriage. I can't fix what you won't name. You're being dramatic. Then this will be easy. I let my breath settle. If there's no one, say there's no one. She exhaled like a teenager asked to take out the trash. I told you, I have options. That doesn't mean I need them. It's simple, I said. Need or not, I'm not competing. She laughed the way she did at the sink last night. Soft, like this was cute. Don't wait up, she said, and hung up. I set the phone face up and went back to work. There's a difference between ignoring and choosing. I chose not to scroll her pages like a PI who bills by the hour. Not action. Just columns, accounts, keys, subscriptions, insurance, storage. Sunlight shifted across the page in slow squares while Moose snored under my boot rack. At 7, her mother called. That's a woman I respect. She lives 3 hours away and believes in casseroles and consequences. I'm hearing chatter, she said without preface. Is she with you? No, ma'am. You two fighting? No, ma'am. We're measuring. Measuring what? What's load-bearing? She let out a small sound that might have been a laugh or a prayer. Night rolled back in with that August thickness. The bank sent 2 more pings. A boutique hotel bar I knew by its lighting alone, blue and flattering. Then a receipt for food she doesn't eat unless there's an audience. Somewhere between those, a text. You still awake? 10 minutes later. You'd like this place if you weren't so you. I typed and erased 3 different lines before landing where I'd planned all along. Be safe. She replied with a heart, the smallest currency of modern intimacy. You can tell a lot about a person by who amplifies them. Her group chat. The girls started lifting her posts like a cheer squad. Fire emojis. Inside jokes that got louder the more I stayed quiet. The point of a chorus is to drown out the soloist. I let it sing. The dog looked up at me from the rug, head cocked, half a question. We're fine, I told him. He decided to believe me and went back to sleep. At 9, I walked the perimeter the way I do before a storm. Backyard gate latched. Garage door sensor clean. The chain lock on the front door slid easily. I hadn't used it in years. I just felt the weight of it in my hand. Hardware is honest. It does what it's designed to do. I left it hanging and went back to the island, opened the drawer, and took out the spare keys I'd made last winter when one of her friends lost hers in our couch. I placed them on the counter and tried to decide whether that was tenderness or paperwork. The pressure did what pressure always does when it meets calm, got louder. A new post, a Cheers video, bracelets and nails, a male wristwatch barely in frame. If it was an accident, it was the most deliberate one I've ever seen. I watched it once, put the phone down, and scratched an itch I'd ignored for months. What do I want? Not what I'd tolerate, what I wanted. The answers were embarrassingly simple. Respect, quiet, straight talk. A woman who doesn't use the word options like a coupon. I wrote them on the bottom of the yellow pad and underlined nothing. At 10:30 she called again, a little slur on the edges. You asleep? No. You mad? No. You sound mad. I sound clear. I let the fan fill 3 seconds. You said you don't need me and you're never short on options. I heard you. I'm giving you room to test your thesis. God, Aaron. She laughed, brittle this time. You're impossible. Solid, I said. That's the word you used to like. Another silence. I could hear her thinking, the wheels searching for a track they used to ride on. Do you want me to come home? Do you want to? I asked you. Then we're done here. I didn't slam. I landed. Be safe. She hung up without another word. 10 minutes later, a text came from an unknown number with a photo attached. Her in a mirror, two women flanking her, a man's blazer draped over a chair in the corner. I saved it to a folder labeled Thursday and turned off message previews. If you've ever argued with an adjuster, you know. Pictures, dates, receipts. Close to midnight, the porch sensor winked on and off twice. Wind or cat? I didn't move. You can spend a whole life chasing false motion. At 12:30, another bank ping. At 1:10, a ride charge. At 1:40, a text. Don't lock me out. I typed, doors open. Then I set the phone down and folded the yellow pad closed on its list, columns neat and ready. The pressure has a way of exhausting itself when it can't find your edges. Around 2, I turned off the kitchen light and listened to the house settle. Somewhere across town, applause swelled for a song I don't know. In here, nothing performed. I checked the front door one last time, not to bar it, but to understand it. The chain rested against wood, quiet and capable. I left it unlatched and went to bed. I let her words continue their work on me like rain on an honest roof. Options, she'd said. Options are just bids. The job goes to the contractor who shows up, on time, with a plan, and owns the warranty. If she wanted to run that process on her life at 1 in the morning, I was simply going to be ready when the bids came back. At 2:58, the screen lit up the dark, on my way. I watched the message burn blue, then fade. I set my alarm for the same time I always do, reached for Moose's ear, and felt him lean his whole weight into my hand. Outside, the sensor light clicked on again and stayed on, casting a clean rectangle on the porch. The pressure had finally found its next surface. I woke up before dawn with a steadiness I hadn't felt in months. The night before, she'd laughed about her options like our home was a waiting room, and I was a magazine she'd already skimmed. Fine. Options have costs. So I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and treated our situation like what she'd turned it into, a ledger that needed balancing. The quiet was surgical. Coffee, notebook, numbers. If she wanted freedom, she could finance it. First move was the bank. I removed an authorized user from 2 cards and requested new numbers on the primary. Not a scene, just a boundary. If she wanted a night out, that was between her and whoever she considered an option. I shifted direct deposit to a separate account I'd opened weeks ago when the late nights and new password started. Bills tied strictly to the house remained where they were. Anything discretionary that had slowly fused to my wallet, salon memberships, boutique fitness, streaming she never watched but bragged about, went dark with a few clicks. The confirmation emails came in like little doors closing. I called the cell carrier next. We'd upgraded her phone for work last spring. I moved her line off my plan and set the end-of-cycle date. The rep offered me a loyalty discount for staying. I smiled at the irony. Loyalty had never been the problem. I declined the discount. I wanted clean lines, not better prices. Then insurance, auto and renters. I kept the policies in my name and removed anything that implied shared liability. We are separating finances. Please reflect that. The hold music gave me space to breathe. Each change felt like pulling thread from a tangled sweater until the knot gave way. Logins followed. Shopping accounts, cloud storage, travel points I'd earned on flights she mocked as boring work trips. I reset 2-factor authentication everywhere and printed a single-page sheet titled Shared Access After Separation. It had exactly 4 items: utilities portal, the HOA gate code, the emergency contact list, and the number to the locksmith if she lost her key. Nothing more. No Amazon household, no subscription boxes that kept arriving because canceling was emotional labor. If we were going to talk about labor, we were going to be honest about who was carrying what. While the printer hummed, I sorted the physical house the same way I'd sorted the digital one. Her boxes went near the entry, neatly labeled by room: closet, vanity, office nook, bathroom. I folded, wrapped, zipped. I put the fragile things in separate bags and stuck post-its where a cord or a charger might be missed. I gave more care to those bags than she'd given to our conversations these last weeks, and the calm of doing it right. Doing it once settled me further. I left her a laundry basket with the stuff she'd insist she needed right now, because I know how mornings go when people think consequences don't have schedules. By late morning, I had a list on the counter titled New Terms. For bullets, no commentary. 1. No shared cards, accounts, or autopays. 2. Rent and utilities are due on the 1st. Your half is your responsibility. 3. Guests aren't my problem, but no one spends my money. 4. If you want to be here, you carry your weight here. They weren't threats. They were the same expectations any adult has when two roommates split a place. Except this roommate had announced she was never short on options. Perfect. No one with options needs my tab. Before lunch, I called a lawyer. We discussed asset lines, the lease, how to document contributions without turning my home into a courtroom. He said the same thing my gut had been whispering. Keep it clean, keep it written, keep it calm. I emailed him scans of the updated accounts and a photo of the new terms page, so there would be a timestamp that didn't come from me alone. Paperwork is respect in situations like this. It respects the truth when feelings go fuzzy. I took a break at noon and ate standing over the sink, listening to the house breathe. It was amazing how different the rooms felt without the constant hum of appeasement. I realized I'd already made a quiet shift days ago, stopped asking where she was going, stopped planning around her volatile calendar, stopped reaching for a shoulder that turned into a shrug. Today just matched the finances to the reality. In the afternoon, I handled the small things that end up big if you ignore them. Parking decals, the guest gate app she never figured out, the spare key she'd stopped hanging on the hook. I put the spare in the lockbox, texted her the code, and added the line. This isn't punishment. It's proof. You said you have options. I'm choosing mine. Her replies didn't come for hours. When they did, they landed in the tone I'd grown tired of, casual superiority with a layer of disbelief. So we're roommates now? Cute. I answered once. We're adults. My cycles aren't funding your experiments. If you want to revisit us, act like us existed. Then I put my phone face down and went back to the list. I canceled the flower subscription I'd started back when small surprises still meant something. I paused the meal plan she swore made her feel lighter. I paused every auto-renew that had let convenience turn into complacency. Around sunset, I set the last bag by the door and taped the single sheet of shared access on top. I made the bed, cleaned the kitchen, moved into the guest room without ceremony. Sleeping in a different room was an audit of energy. Mine had been leaking for months. Tonight, I was sealing the line. At 10, I took one last pass through the house with a trash bag, picking up the small debris of a life that's been performing itself. Ticket stubs, a wristband from a rooftop bar, a receipt that read split 3 ways. I dropped them in the bin outside and felt the kind of lightness that isn't giddy, just appropriate. I turned off the porch light and left the entry lamp on so she could see where I'd set her things. Clear, dignified, unmistakable. Close to midnight, another text. You're overreacting. I was just seeing what was out there. I didn't reply. Options don't require announcements. They require resources. I'd provided enough of those for both of us, long enough. I lay in the guest bed, listening to the hum of the AIC, and realized I wasn't counting the minutes until the door opened. That, more than any phone call, was the moment I knew the shift was real. Peace has a sound when you've been living without it. The bolt turned at 3:07 a.m. The door eased open, and the hallway light cut a clean stripe across the floor. I was already standing there. She stepped in carefully, eyes taking a second to adjust, and then they landed on the row of black contractor bags lined along the wall, labels taped neat at the top. Closet, vanity, bathroom, office nook, right now. The single sheet titled Shared Access After Separation sat on the first bag like a receipt. She let out a small laugh that aimed for breezy and landed on brittle. Are you serious with this? Her gaze flicked from the bags to my face and back, looking for the old version of me who would rush to smooth the edges. It's organized so you won't have to come back for anything you need, I said. Voice low even. Codes and contacts are on the sheet. Wow. She towed one bag with the tip of her shoe, then tried on a smile that had worked for her in restaurants and negotiations with friends. You're being dramatic. I'm being clear. I kept my hands at my sides. You said you're never short on options. I'm giving your options room to work. The smile thinned. So I go out one night, and now you're evicting me? Evicting would be putting your things on the lawn, I said. This is a boundary. There's a difference. Moose padded in, sniffed the bags, decided nothing here required his input, and wandered back to his bed. Smart animal. She switched lanes, quick as always. This is financial abuse, she said, gesturing toward the stack like it had a courtroom audience. Cutting off my cards? Switching plans? That's controlling. Controlling would be hiding what I did, I said. Everything's listed. Shared costs are shared. Your life is yours to fund. I tapped the paper once and stepped back. She followed my hand with her eyes, then let them drift past me toward the hallway, toward the bedroom door. I'm exhausted, she said, softer now. Can we not do this at 3 in the morning? We're not doing anything. I held her gaze. There are 2 choices right now, sleep or go. We can talk at noon. She took a half step closer, brought her perfume with her, placed a hand on my forearm like a key testing a lock it used to open. Baby, she said, voice lowered, the edge filed off. Come back to bed. We can laugh about this tomorrow. I kept the distance without dramatics. I'm sleeping in the guest room. I nodded toward the master. If you want the bed, take it. But tomorrow, we talk like adults who read what they sign. Her hand fell away. God, Aaron, you're impossible. The line sounded practiced, like she'd workshopped it with the same cheer squad that posted fire emojis on her stories. She looked around the room one more time, at the clean floor, the quiet hallway, at all the places the argument wasn't, and then aimed for pity. Where am I supposed to go? A tremor touched the edge of the question, real or placed. You told me you had options, I said. Pick one. I held her eyes long enough for the sentence to land, then stepped aside and let silence do what lectures never can. She moved past me, then turned and tried a new angle, outrage. So what? You're punishing me because I went out? You're jealous. I don't compete, I said. I priced the job, and I stand by the bid. That's not how people work. It's how respect works. The house held its shape while she cycled through the kit. Guilt. How could you do this to me? Seduction. Maybe we should take a shower and forget it. Blame. You're cold. This is why I went out. You make me feel trapped. Panic. Rapid texts. The flicker of her screen lighting her face. Calls that rang and then ended with hard little notes. Declined. Voicemail. She tried the mirror selfie tone again. You know, I could call someone right now. I nodded at the door. Your phone works. Another call. Declined. At 3:30, she sat on the bottom step like a kid at the end of a party. The bravado was gone, replaced by a busy grief that looked a lot like a person catching up to the consequences she'd ordered. You really cut the cards? She asked, small. I ended our shared spending, I said. You're not a line item. That's respect. She read the shared access sheet like it might sprout a loophole if she stared long enough. Utilities portal, HOA code, locksmith number. She looked up. You're calm. It's late. I kept my voice where it had been all night. And I'm finished with the part of the story where I explain myself to be taken seriously. Her phone buzzed again, a message previewed, then evaporated when she flicked it away. A new text came in, this one from her sister. I saw the name flash and dim. Another from her mother. She didn't open them. Then my phone lit up on the console table. Is she with you? Her mom wrote. Tell me she's safe. I answered. She's safe. We'll talk in the morning. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Thank you. Came back a minute later. Adults recognize a closed loop. By 4, the first cracks widened into something past performative. She moved her shoes into a neat pair on the rug, then moved them back again, unable to decide what message she wanted the house to receive. She took a small bag and filled it, then emptied it. She glanced at me every few minutes to see if I'd rescue her from the burden of choosing. A roof holds. It doesn't climb down to the yard to argue with wind. At 4:20 she stood, grabbed the right now bag, and headed for the door. She paused, hand on the knob. Are you going to tell everyone I'm the villain? The question was quiet, but it was the first honest one of the night. I'm not going to tell anyone anything, I said. People will see what they see. I'm busy. That landed. She nodded, opened the door, and stepped into the rectangle of light the porch threw onto the stoop. The sensor clicked, hummed, and settled. She sat outside on the top step for a while, phone in hand, shoulders hunched in the posture of someone waiting for a car that stayed 3 minutes away for 10. Through the glass I watched a rideshare icon inch across a map. Stop, turn, leave. Options have their own schedules. At 5, the neighbor across the hall, retired, early riser, opened his door a crack, assessed the quiet row of labeled bags, and caught my eye. "Everything okay?" he mouthed. I gave a small nod. He nodded back, closed his door. A community noticing and returning to its morning. I went to the guest room and lay down without closing the door. Sleep came in measured pieces. The house didn't require supervision. At 7, the phone buzzed. A text from Nate, crew on site. "Need anything?" I sent back a thumbs up and "You're good." A beat later, another text from an unknown number. "Hey, I don't agree with how she's handling this." I told her so. "Sorry you're in it." One of her friends, I guessed. The chorus had lost a member. By 9, she was back on the step, eyes swollen, mouth set. "Can I come in to use the bathroom?" she asked through the open door. "Yes," I said, stepping aside. No editorial. She went straight down the hall and reappeared minutes later with a fresh coat of composure and a very old look in her eyes. The one she wore the day we signed our first lease. The one that understood rent is due on the 1st whether the month was kind or not. "I thought someone would pick me up," she said to the floor. "I know," I said. "I thought you'd stop me before I did something stupid." She met my eyes. There was no accusation in it, just a late admission. "I did," I said, tapping the page on the first bag. I stopped paying for it. At 10:30, a rideshare pulled up and the driver knocked, apologetic smile already in place. I helped him carry the labeled bags to the trunk and back seat. He handled them like they were heavier than they looked. Most things are. She stood by the railing, phone to her ear, saying nothing while someone on the other end filled the silence with advice she'd already tried. The driver closed the trunk, gave me a quick nod, then looked at her. "You ready?" he asked. She blinked, pocketed the phone, and climbed in. The car pulled away, turned left, disappeared behind the maple on the corner. I went back inside, picked up the last Post-it that had floated loose from a bag, vanity, top drawer, and stuck it to the now empty space on the wall where the bags had leaned. Not to memorialize anything, to remind myself what an orderly exit looks like. Before noon, her sister texted again. "She says you were calm." "Thank you." Her mother sent a simple heart. Another friend wrote, "We got a different story last night." Then we saw the sheet. I'm staying out of it. Small confirmations for my records. Her game had depended on soft focus and noise. Clarity and quiet don't flatter that kind of performance. I made coffee and sat at the same island where she'd laughed 2 nights earlier. Moose thumped his tail, then settled under my feet like a sandbag on a tarp. The house sounded like the honest version of itself. Refrigerator cycling, a truck downshifting on the street, my own breath working at a normal pace. I finished the mug, washed it, and wiped the counter until it squeaked. By the time the cup was dry, my phone buzzed one last time. "I'll come by later to talk." I typed back, "No later. Noon." In writing first. Her game hadn't ended with a scene. It had ended with inventory. She tried guilt, seduction, blame, and panic, and the house held. Other people started seeing what they needed to see, because consequence is its own PR. Noon would come soon enough. I had work to do. Respect isn't a speech you give, it's a standard you keep. Noon came like a job site walkthrough. Sun high, heat honest, nothing left to hide. She texted first, "Here." I replied, "Email me your proposal before you come in." 2 minutes later, a paragraph arrived that said many words without making one commitment. Space, time, figure us out. And a closing line about working on communication. I printed it, drew a line under the last sentence, and wrote in the margin, "What are you offering?" Then I set the paper on the island beside a pen and waited with the same patience I give a supplier who promises delivery by end of day. She stepped in wearing the neutral expression people use when they're trying to look reasonable. No perfume this time. No soft laugh. "Can we talk like normal people?" she asked. "We can act like adults," I said. I tapped the page. "Tell me what you're offering." "What do you want me to say?" "The truth," I said. "And the plan." I kept my voice level. "You said you don't need me, and you're never short on options. Then you asked where to go at 3 a.m. I can live with what you choose. I can't live with you choosing 2 things at once." She stared at the paper, put the pen on it, took the pen off, and tried for the family angle. "My mom thinks." "I respect your mom," I said. "That's why I answered her last night. This is between us." She looked around the room like the furniture might prompt a better argument. When none arrived, she exhaled. "I don't want a divorce," she said. "I don't want a roommate with a PR team," I said. "So here's my side. I'm filing." We'll split clean. No campaign. No smear. Inventory is inventory. I slid an envelope across the counter, my lawyer's card, a draft outline, dates. You'll be treated with fairness, not familiarity. The word fairness landed like a weight. She picked up the card, set it down, picked it up again. So that's it. That's clarity, I said. And a door that doesn't swing on both hinges anymore. She tried for the soft landing. What if we do counseling? We could have, I said, before you turned us into content. I nodded at the phone on the counter. It's not the posts. It's the contempt. I let it sit where options had sat 2 nights earlier. Her shoulders slumped. Do you still love me? Love's not the problem, I said. Respect is load-bearing. Take it out, the whole structure sags. She looked at me like I'd confessed a crime. I handed her a printed list, pick-up dates for the last items in storage, keys to the lockbox, a notarized receipt for the jewelry she'd asked about that morning. No surprises, I said. Surprises are how we got here. She signed where the sticky flags told her to sign, because the alternative required work she didn't want to do. When she finished, she placed the pen carefully in the exact center of the page like she could tidy the truth by aligning my office supplies. I never meant to hurt you, she said. I know, I said. You meant to entertain yourself. I wasn't cruel about it. Just accurate. She left at 2 with a tote, the card, and a silence I'd been waiting to hear for months. The door clicked, the house exhaled, Moose sighed, and the light shifted on the floor like a room remembering its original layout. After that, life sharpened. I met my lawyer, signed clean paperwork, moved our digital artifacts into a folder labeled closed projects. I called the landlord, explained the change, and requested a fresh lease in my name alone. He asked if I wanted to stay. Yes, I said, for now. I changed the locks. Work grew easier the moment I stopped performing at home. I hired a second crew lead. We landed the 2-building re-roof and carry and a steeple repair on a little white church that still rings a real bell. I started running again before sunrise, miles that made sense and didn't ask for commentary. On Saturdays, I tried the coastal weekend I'd canceled, alone this time. Ate shrimp on paper plates at a stand with salt on the floor and a sign that said cash only like a promise. I slept in a cheap inn with thin towels and woke up rested anyway. You don't need luxury when you're not negotiating for peace. People called, the way people do. Her sister thanked me for being decent. Her mother apologized for the noise. A couple of her friends tried the both sides pitch. I kept my answers short and factual. We're finished, I said. I wish her well. Facts are boring when there's no blood, but they hold. A month out, she texted late. I've been thinking. Can we meet? I looked at the screen for a long minute and tried to locate the man who would have grabbed at that line. He wasn't in the room. Email I wrote. The next day, an essay arrived about missing what we had, starting over, and learning from mistakes. I replied with one line. I accept your apology and decline reconciliation. Word came back through the grapevine that some of the options had turned into receipts. No tabs covered. No rides at 3 a.m. No patient explanations from men who didn't know her well enough to carry her rationalizations. I put on a harness and finished a valley flashing that had been leaking since a storm in June. 2 months out, the decree arrived in the mail. Thin envelope. Thick relief. I slid it into a file beside the deed to my truck and the insurance certificates for the business. Paper that says a thing is what it says. I made coffee, sat at the island, and read the page twice, because I wanted to memorize the feeling of done. I went to work on the one I'd already built. I added a modest profit share for the crew. They'd carried me through the fog without making a speech about it. I bought Moose a new bed that didn't sag in the middle. I finally booked the dentist appointment I'd kicked 3 times and texted my dad a photo of the church steeple, just because he likes old things that still stand. Sometimes, late, I think about the kitchen the night she laughed and said she was never short on options. I still believe her. Options are abundant. Standards are rare. That's the quiet prize in all this. It's waking up, pouring coffee, and knowing I won't trade my respect to keep anyone. I won't discount the bid to win the job and then eat the cost in silence. She reached out once more. Holidays, a neutral greeting with a harmless emoji. I let it sit until it scrolled off the lock screen. Some roofs you strip to the decking and rebuild. Some you tear off, load into the dumpster, and start fresh because the rot is in the bones. I chose the second. The house holds. The dog sleeps deep. The crews roll out at daybreak. And when I lock the door behind me, it's not to keep anyone out. It's to keep what I built from being negotiated away again. Respect was never a bargaining chip. It was the structure. Now it's non-negotiable.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.